Grogu was with Luke Skywalker for many years.
I don't know if I said many years. It's probably about the real time that we've experienced it. So it was the end of season 2 when they said goodbye. We checked in the Book of Boba Fett about a year ago when they parted company again, and then he rejoined the Mandalorian. So now I think somewhere in there, more than 1 and less than, somewhere between 1 and 2, 0 and 2 years.
Oh, so not that many years.
No.
Filling me with all the confidence in the world there, John. Well, The Mandalorian is back after a 2-year hiatus, unless you count his appearance in the Book of Boba Fett, but I do my best to ignore that show. Honestly, I think I'm forever scarred by how horrendous Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi were. So much so that my anticipation for any future Star Wars project without the name Andor written on it was next to zero. I'm just very tired of Star Wars projects constantly having to resort to recycling old material because they don't know how to write new stuff that's actually good. So you won't be surprised to hear that when I saw the Mandalorian trailers and oh my word, it's Salacious Crumb. Blimey, it's Babu Frick, but not Babu Frick. More lightsabers, fantastic. I kinda rolled my eyes as it seemed like we were returning back to the old ways of prioritising cameos and references, instead of telling an actual good story. The first episode seems to be getting pretty good reviews so far, and I can understand why. The episode was fun, it was enjoyable to watch. If you turn your brain off, I'm sure you'll have a great time. However, when you hold the episode up to any kind of scrutiny, a lot of glaring issues become apparent. So let's begin discussing them. We begin the episode with the Armourer making a new helmet just in time for the Mandalorian baptism. Now this is hardly significant and doesn't really matter, but I did notice a weird editing mistake. So the Armourer is shaping the Beskar to helmet shape. We see it start to bend as she's hitting it, but then in the next shot it's flat again. Like I said, very insignificant. Weird little thing I noticed, probably didn't need to mention. Let's just move on. We then proceed to the baptism. All is well, until Jon Favreau realises it's been a whole 4 minutes and we haven't had any action yet. So, a big scary crocodile monster shows up to ruin the baptism, and the Mandalorians are left with no choice but to take it down. They start shooting it for a while. The big scary crocodile doesn't seem to really be affected. I guess that's how that works. The Mandalorians eventually decide to be smart and use their explosives. So they fly on top of it, stick some to its back, and they blow up. Big scary crocodile monster doesn't seem particularly fazed by the whole thing. In fact, it doesn't even look like it took any damage. How unfortunate. The battle continues to go awfully for the Mandalorians until... Wow, how convenient he showed up just in the nick of time. Can't help but feel like if he showed up on a different day or a few hours later you'd have all been screwed. We then see Mando having a chat with the Armourer. He says he's going to go to the mines of Mandalore and bathe in the living waters in order to be redeemed. Redeemed of what, you might ask? Well, for those who didn't watch peak 2022 television, The Book of Boba Fett, I'll explain it to you. In that gem of a show, the Armourer declares that Din is no longer a Mandalorian as he took off his helmet at the end of Season 2. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about this for a minute. So much of this first episode is going to have quite a few people very confused. If you didn't watch The Book of Boba Fett, you're going to be sat there asking yourself many questions like, since when did Mando reunite with Grogu? Where did this new ship come from? I can't help but feel like having a show deal with character threads and plot points from a different show isn't a particularly smart idea, as you're going to get people that don't bother to watch that other show. So when they come back to this show, they've got no idea what's going on. Star Wars doesn't have a fan base like Marvel where most people will check out all the different projects so they can keep up. However, I think Marvel are even pushing it now with the amount of stuff they're putting out. Anyway, Mando and Grogu then travel to Navarro. Sound familiar? Good, because it looks completely different. They walk past a familiar face. It's a statue of IG-11. Remember when he self-destructed? In a lava river? Well, I guess someone later went to go and fish out all of the pieces. Lucky he wasn't completely destroyed after blowing up. Reminds me of how the Death Star blew up, but there was still just enough of it intact so people would recognise it. Mando and Grogu then reunite with Greef Karga and they have a catch-up. Greef essentially says what anyone who didn't watch the Book of Boba Fett is thinking.
I'm confused. I thought you had completed your mission, but you're still running around here with the same little critter.
It's complicated.
It's complicated? You're nearly at...
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Levels of laziness with your writing here, come on. Greef is trying to persuade Mando and Grogu to stay on Navarro, but then the demand for an action scene walks into the room. This time, it's a confrontation between Mando, Greef, and some pirates. It's a very weird confrontation. The pirates want to have a drink in this bar that's been turned into a school. Greef tells them this, but the pirates aren't backing down from the fact that it's a bar. You know, I think this gym is an underwater city. I can clearly see it's not, but I say it is, therefore it is. The pirates are enraged by the fact that their pub has been turned into a school and they have a mini shootout with Greef and Mando. They all get shot except Vane, who they end up just letting go. Greef says it's to let people know that Navarro is respectable and not to be trifled with. Sure, okay, these people did just try to kill you. Mando then explains to Greef that he wants to repair IG-11 so that he can assist him on Mandalore. I still can't believe that he's in this good condition, he blew up for Christ's sake. Also, I'm not quite sure on how Mando plans on transporting IG-11 to Mandalore, considering his ship literally has no room for anything else other than him and Grogu. Anyway, Mando then hooks up IG-11 to power and he turns back on. Unfortunately, it seems like he's been reset to his old programming, so he starts to go after Grogu. Mando then throws Grogu to Greef like he's a rugby ball and not a living creature. Karga's droid then drops a statue on IG-11's head and he powers off. Fantastic. They then take IG-11 to a droid smith and... Oh my goodness, it's Babu Frick, but not Babu Frick. Remember Babu Frick? He was like, hey, in that really cool movie. What was it called again? I don't know, but who cares? It's Babu Frick. I cannot believe that they've snooped so low that they're now referencing the sequels. Good God. Babu Frick, but not Babu Frick is like, I can't fix him unless you get me this part. So Mando now has another side quest he can go on. Oh, how I love Mando and his side quests. It's almost like it's the whole show. Anyway, Mando and Grogu then leave Navarro and then Naboo Starfighter, and then the writers realise it's been over 5 minutes since the last action scene. Now we have a space battle with some more pirates. I do wonder why he didn't just go into hyperspace or use his thrusters or whatever he uses. He could have very easily avoided this entire confrontation. Can't help but remember a scene in the Book of Boba Fett where he was in a very similar position to this and he decided to escape by flying away really fast. But who cares about consistency? So the dogfight happens. Mando was of course on top throughout the whole thing. I don't even think the pirates hit him once. The pirates give up on trying to take him out and lure Mando to the capital ship. The ship has a target lock on Mando, kind of implying he's very much out of luck. But then, he comes up with a genius plan. A plan so genius it blows my mind. He turns on his thrusters and flies away really fast. Why didn't you do this at the start? Good lord. Mando then goes to Kalevala with the intention of joining Bo-Katan. Remember Bo-Katan? I remember Bo-Katan. He walks down this very, very long corridor and they both have a conversation. Does Bo-Katan just sit on that throne all day feeling sorry for herself? Must be a boring life. She explains how there's nothing left and that when she didn't return with the Darksaber, her forces moved away. Makes me wonder why she didn't fight Mando for it at the end of Season 2. Or better, keep in continuity with other Star Wars projects and just have Mando give it to her. I guess the writers forgot about Rebels. She then says this.
Your cult gave up on Mandalore long before the Purge. Where were you then?
For a start, you're saying where were you as if leaving wasn't the smart decision. Like they left so they could re-establish their traditions or whatever and they survived. You're complaining that the Children of the Watch left Mandalore because their traditions weren't in the favour of the other Mandalorians? Almost sounds like a pretty reasonable thing to do if you ask me. Also, who are you retaking Mandalore from exactly? Does the Empire still control it? Are we gonna get any explanation for this? No? Fine. She then whines some more and tells Din to go away. So he does, continuing his quest to Mandalore. And that concludes The Mandalorian Season 3 Episode 1. It was certainly something, I'll give it that. I just don't think that after seeing a really well-written Star Wars show with Andor, we should go back to accepting poorly written mediocrity. Listen, I get it. It's fun, it's got entertaining action, it's got the weird and wacky Star Wars creatures that we all love. However, the writing in this show really isn't that great, and I feel like we should stop letting it slide. Also, people hailing Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni as saints? Don't forget, they wrote the Book of Boba Fett. These aren't some gods in writing. Anyway, I know I'm in the minority here, everyone seems to love this first episode. Although I do hope people begin to acknowledge the evident writing flaws in this show and accept that whilst yes, it is enjoyable, it is no well-written masterpiece. That's just about everything I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time. Goodbye.